Can you believe she still thinks today's about her? My sister-in-law's voice sliced through the church air like shattered champagne glass. Thank God we didn't invite her. Imagine the embarrassment. I stood frozen behind the marble pillar, my hands trembling against the cold stone. Sarah, the woman my brother chose over family, laughed with her bridesmaids, adjusting her veil, while my brother smiled at her like she hung the moon. The same brother whose diapers I'd changed at 16. The same brother I'd raised after our parents died. No invitation, not lost, not forgotten, deliberately withheld. The realization hit harder than the 6-hour drive I just made after seeing my cousin's Instagram story. Can't believe baby Jake is getting married today. Family loved Boucher blessed. Every relative was there, every family friend, everyone except the sister who'd given up everything to raise him. Security might be an issue, Sarah continued, her voice carrying in the acoustic chamber. Jake said she's been unstable since we cut contact. You know how obsessive older sisters can be. Obsessive. That's what she called the 10 years I'd spent being his mother, father, and safety net rolled into one. My phone buzzed, a text from my aunt. "Where are you, sweetie? The ceremony's starting soon." She didn't know. None of them knew I hadn't been invited to my own brother's wedding. I typed back, "Running late, save me a seat." Then deleted it. Typed, "Not feeling well." Deleted again. Finally settled on my way. The church bells began to ring. Guests filed into the sanctuary, and I caught glimpses of faces I'd known my whole life. My high school teacher who'd helped me get custody of Jake. Our old neighbor who'd brought casseroles those first terrible months. My parents' best friends who'd offered to take Jake in. An offer I'd refused because I couldn't bear to lose the only family I had left. Now I understood I'd lost him anyway. "Places, everyone." The wedding coordinator, a sharp woman in a black suit, ushered the bridal party toward the doors. "Remember, bridesmaids, count to 3 between each pair. Sarah, you look absolutely radiant. This is going to be perfect. Perfect. A perfect day for a perfect couple in their perfect world where inconvenient sisters didn't exist. I should have left then. Should have slipped out the side door and driven home to my empty apartment, to the life I'd built in the shadows of Jake's needs. But something made me stay. Call it morbid curiosity. Call it the last shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, there had been a mistake. The music swelled. Pachelbel's Canon, Mom's favorite. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah had probably chosen it, thinking it was classy, having no idea it was the song Mom hummed while doing dishes, the melody she'd requested for her own funeral, the tune I'd played on repeat those first sleepless nights after the accident. The sanctuary doors opened. I pressed myself deeper into the alcove, watching through the narrow gap between pillar and wall. The bridesmaids floated down the aisle in lavender, my favorite color, another irony, their smiles perfectly rehearsed. Then came Jake, my baby brother, looking so much like Dad, it stole my breath. He was nervous. I could tell by the way he kept touching his cufflinks. The ones I'd given him for his high school graduation. "For the man you're becoming," I'd said then, never imagining that man wouldn't want me in his life. The music shifted, everyone stood, and there was Sarah, a vision in white, her father beside her. The father who'd walked her down the aisle. The ritual I'd dreamed of performing for Jake if he ever had a daughter, since our father couldn't. But I was learning that dreams die quietly, suffocated by the people who once shared them. Dearly beloved, The minister began, his voice echoing through the space. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Jacob Michael Thompson and Sarah Elizabeth Chen. Thompson, our family name, the name I'd fought to help him keep when social services tried to change it, thinking a fresh start would help him heal. The name I'd taught him to write in shaky kindergarten letters, the name that apparently meant nothing now. That's when Sarah's mother spotted me, her face drained of color like wine spilling from a glass. She grabbed her husband's arm, whispering urgently, her eyes never leaving mine. I watched the alarms spread through the front row like wildfire, nudges, whispers, heads turning. But I didn't move, didn't run, didn't make the scene they were all so afraid of. Instead, I did something worse. I smiled. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with a scream. Sometimes it comes wearing your favorite color and stealing your mother's song. The smile stayed on my face as I slipped out the side door, leaving behind the whispers and worried glances. My heels clicked against the pavement, the new ones I'd bought specifically for this wedding, back when I thought I'd be sitting in the front row, not hiding behind pillars like a ghost at my own brother's celebration. 10 years. That's how long it had been since the phone call that changed everything. "Miss Thompson, this is Officer Martinez with the State Highway Patrol. There's been an accident." I was 22, 3 weeks into my dream job at Goldman Sachs, living in a studio apartment in Manhattan that cost more than most people's mortgages. I had plans, Paris in the fall, MBA applications in the spring, maybe a startup in 5 years. I was going to be somebody. Instead, I became everything to a 16-year-old boy who'd just lost his world. The drive back to Indianapolis that night was the longest of my life. I remember stopping at a gas station somewhere in Pennsylvania, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, and watching my youth evaporate like morning mist. The girl in designer heels and a power suit was gone. In her place stood a guardian, a provider, a substitute parent who had no idea what she was doing. Jake didn't speak for 3 weeks after the funeral. He'd sit in his room, staring at the wall, while I frantically Googled how to help grieving teenagers and sudden guardian responsibilities, and how to keep a house when you have no money. The life insurance barely covered the funeral costs. The mortgage was 2 months behind. Goldman Sachs filled my position within a week. "I don't want you here," he finally said one night over dinner. "Boxed mac and cheese, because I hadn't learned to cook yet." "I want Mom and Dad." "I know," I'd whispered, stirring my own untouched bowl. "I want them too." But wanting doesn't bring people back, so I became what he needed, even when he hated me for it. I sold Mom's jewelry, the vintage collection she'd spent 30 years curating, to keep us in the house. Her emerald ring bought us 6 months of mortgage payments. The pearl necklace from her wedding paid for Jake's therapy. The diamond earrings Dad gave her for their 20th anniversary covered the lawyer who helped me get legal guardianship. "Why are you doing this?" Jake asked one night, 6 months in. He'd finally started talking regularly, mostly to complain about my cooking or my rules or my existence. "Because you're my brother," I said simply. "So, you could have let Aunt Martha take me. You could have stayed in New York." I remember looking at him, gangly and angry and so lost, and seeing myself in his eyes. We were both orphans now, but at least we were orphans together. "Do you remember," I said slowly, "when you were 5 and scared of the monster under your bed?" He rolled his eyes but nodded. You climbed into my bed every night for a month, and every night I'd check under your bed, even though we both knew there was nothing there. I'd wave my flashlight around and declare the room monster-free, and only then would you go back to sleep. So I'm still checking for monsters, Jake. They're just different now. They're called social services and foreclosure and failing grades. And I'm going to keep checking until you don't need me to anymore. He didn't say anything, but that night, he did his homework without being asked. The sacrifices became routine. I worked 3 jobs, administrative assistant by day, Uber driver by evening, weekend shifts at Target. I learned to cook by watching YouTube videos at 2 a.m. I attended every parent-teacher conference, every soccer game, every awards ceremony. I dated exactly twice in those 10 years, both relationships ending when they realized I came with a teenage dependent. "You're not my mom," Jake would shout during our fights, and I'd bite my tongue until it bled, wanting to scream back, "No, but I'm the one who stayed." When he got into Northwestern, I cried in my car for an hour. Not just because I was proud, though God, I was so proud, but because I knew what it meant. Another loan, another sacrifice, another dream deferred. But I signed the papers anyway, sold the car, took a second mortgage on the house, watched him drive away to college in the used Honda I'd bought him, waving until he disappeared around the corner. He met Sarah his sophomore year. "She's different," he told me, over Thanksgiving break, his eyes bright with young love. "She gets me." I wanted to ask if she got the boy who still called me at 3 a.m. during panic attacks. If she got the kid who couldn't sleep without checking the locks 3 times. If she got the young man who still flinched at the sound of sirens. But I smiled and said, "I can't wait to meet her." Sarah was everything I wasn't, polished, confident, from a family where tragedy meant a bad stock portfolio, not shattered glass on midnight highways. She looked at our small house, at my tired face, at the bills I tried to hide on the kitchen counter, and I saw judgment crystallize in her eyes. "Jake's told me so much about you," she said that first dinner, her smile sharp as winter. "It must have been so hard, giving up your life like that." "I didn't give up my life," I replied carefully. "I chose a different one." But she'd already decided my narrative, the bitter sister who'd sacrificed too much and now clung too tight. And slowly, insidiously, she made Jake believe it too. The invitations stopped coming. Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly, and then non-existent. My calls went unanswered. My texts got one-word replies. "Sarah thinks you're too involved," Jake finally said during what would be our last real conversation. "She says it's unhealthy, this codependency. 10 years of love reduced to a psychology textbook term. "I just want you to be happy," I said, the words ash in my mouth. "Then let me go," he replied. So I did. I let him go, thinking distance was temporary, that blood would prove thicker than infatuation. I was wrong. I learned that in some families, the more you give, the less you're worth. Love becomes leverage, and sacrifice becomes a debt no one wants to repay. 3 days after the wedding, I was still wearing the same clothes, still sitting in the same spot on my couch, still staring at the same crack in the ceiling when my phone buzzed. I'd turned off all notifications except for his number. Some habits die harder than others. "Jake, Sarah saw you at the church. That was inappropriate." I read it 7 times, each word a fresh wound. Not, "I'm sorry you weren't invited," not, "we need to talk." Not even, "Are you okay?" Just, Inappropriate. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed and deleted a dozen responses. Inappropriate. I raised you. Delete. How could you do this to me? Delete. I gave up everything for you. Delete. Another buzz. Jake. Sarah thinks it's best if we take some space. I'm sure you understand. Sarah thinks, not I think or we've decided. Sarah thinks, therefore it must be so. I was formulating another response when the third message arrived. Jake. Also, we're turning Mom and Dad's house into an Airbnb. Sarah has great ideas for renovations. We'll send you a check for your half. Once we get the loans sorted. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. The house. Our childhood home. The place I'd bled myself dry to keep. Working nights and weekends. Skipping meals to make mortgage payments. Selling everything that wasn't nailed down just so Jake could finish high school in the same bedroom he'd slept in since birth. I stumbled to my laptop, fingers shaking as I logged into Instagram. Jake had blocked me months ago, but Sarah's profile was public. She needed the engagement for her lifestyle influencer brand. There it was, posted an hour ago. Sarah standing in my mother's kitchen, her arms spread wide. So excited to announce our new venture. To Jake and Sarah. Renovate is turning this hidden gem into the most Instagrammable Airbnb in Indianapolis. Wait until you see what we do with this dated kitchen. Flip Life, Jobbik Airbnb Superhost, your new beginnings dated kitchen. The kitchen where Mom taught me to make pie crust. Where Dad sang off key while washing dishes. Where I'd made 10,000 meals for a grieving teenager who refused to eat. The comments were already pouring in. OMG Yassis Queen, that backsplash has got to go. Stunning bones, can't wait to see the transformation. You two are Yuchak a couple goals. Jake is so lucky to have you. I scrolled through more posts from the past few days. The wedding photos were endless, professional shots, candids, group photos with every cousin, aunt, and uncle who'd asked me, "Where's Jake?" at every family gathering for the past 2 years. But it was the caption on their first dance photo that finally broke something inside me. Dancing with my husband, free from the past, ready for our future. Sometimes you have to cut toxic people out to truly bloom. New chapter. Healthy boundaries. Blessed. Toxic. I was toxic now. I sat back, waiting for the tears that wouldn't come. Instead, something else emerged, a clarity so sharp it could cut glass. For 10 years, I'd been living in the past, preserving a life that no longer existed, keeping the house like a museum, keeping myself available for a brother who didn't want me, keeping my dreams small enough to fit in the spaces between his needs. But what if I stopped keeping? What if I just left? The thought was terrifying and liberating. I pulled up my banking app. Years of scrimping meant I had savings, not much, but enough. My credit cards were clear. My job was remote. There was literally nothing keeping me here except the ghost of who I used to be. My laptop was still open to Sarah's Instagram. I clicked through to her travel highlights, Cabo, Nashville, Vegas. All the trips funded by the house I'd saved, posted with captions about living authentically and choosing joy. I'd never been anywhere. 10 years of watching other people's vacation photos while I worked overtime to pay for Jake's textbooks. "Fuck it," I said aloud to my empty apartment. The words felt foreign in my mouth. I'd spent so long being appropriate, responsible, reliable. The good sister, the guardian, the sacrifice. But where had that gotten me? I opened a new browser tab and typed, one-way flights from Indianapolis. The options sprawled before me like a map of possibilities. London, Tokyo, Sydney, Bali, Bali. Something about it called to me. Maybe it was the promise of temples and incense, of yoga retreats and jungle silence. Maybe it was just that it was exactly halfway around the world from here, far enough that even my guilt couldn't follow. I clicked on the first available flight, leaving in 6 hours. 6 hours to pack up 10 years of putting myself second. My phone buzzed again. Jake, did you get my messages? Please don't make this difficult. Difficult? As if anything about loving him had ever been easy. This time I didn't hesitate, didn't agonize over the perfect response. I simply typed, "Me. I understand completely. Have a beautiful life." Then I blocked his number. The booking confirmation email arrived as I was shoving clothes into a suitcase. I'd never packed so carelessly, mixing seasons and styles, grabbing things at random. The girl who color coordinated her closet and planned outfits a week in advance was already disappearing. I paused at my jewelry box. The few pieces I'd kept of Mom's, too sentimental to sell even when we were desperate. Her simple gold band, the locket with our family photo, the charm bracelet she'd worn every day of my childhood. I picked up the locket, opened it. 4 faces smiled back. Mom, Dad, Jake, and me, frozen in time at a beach vacation when Jake was 12. All of us sun-kissed and laughing, unaware that in 6 months, 2 of us would be gone, and the other 2 would spend the next decade falling apart in different ways. I closed the locket and left it on the dresser, let the landlord deal with it when I didn't renew my lease. 4 hours until my flight. I called my job, gave notice effective immediately. My boss, used to my reliability, was shocked. "Samantha, what's going on? Is everything okay? Is it your brother?" "No," I said, surprising myself with a laugh. "For once, it's not about my brother. It's about me." 3 hours until my flight. I sent one last email to my aunt, the one who'd asked where I was at the wedding. "Taking some time for myself. We'll be in touch when I'm ready. Please don't worry." 2 hours. I stood in the middle of my apartment, this beige box where I'd existed but never lived. No photos on the walls, no plants because I was always working, no personality because I'd never had time to develop one. 1 hour. The Uber waited outside. I took nothing but a single suitcase and a heart so broken it had finally become brave. At the airport, going through security, the TSA agent looked at my ticket. "Bali, huh? Vacation?" "No," I said, the truth of it settling into my bones. "A beginning." As the plane lifted off, Indianapolis shrinking below me, I didn't look back. Didn't check my phone for messages that wouldn't come. Didn't wonder what Sarah would do to Mom's kitchen. I just closed my eyes and let gravity release me. I didn't need his acknowledgement anymore. I needed my freedom back. And freedom, I learned, begins the moment you stop asking permission to leave. Bali taught me how to breathe again. Not the shallow survival breaths I'd been taking for 10 years. Just enough oxygen to get through another crisis, another bill, another disappointment. But real breaths, the kind that reach your soul and remind you that you're more than your obligations. I spent my first month in Ubud doing absolutely nothing productive. I woke without alarms, ate when hungry, slept when tired. I sat in rice paddies for hours, watching farmers work the same land their grandparents had tended, understanding for the first time the beauty of roots that nourished instead of strangled. "You're healing," Kadek, my homestay host, told me one morning, as I helped her prepare offerings for the family temple. "I can see it in how you hold your shoulders now, less like armor, more like wings." She was right. Somewhere between the sunrise yoga sessions and midnight conversations with travelers who knew nothing about my past, I'd stopped carrying weight that was never mine to bear. It was during my 3rd month, sitting in a coffee shop, overlooking the Tegalalang rice terraces, when fate intervened in the form of a spilled latte. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." The woman who'd bumped into me was everything I used to be. Power suit despite the heat, phone pressed to her ear. That particular brand of Manhattan stress radiating from every pore. "It's fine," I said, helping her gather her scattered papers. That's when I saw the Goldman Sachs letterhead. My old life literally splashed across my present. She looked at me, really looked. "Wait, Samantha Thompson." I froze. Miranda Chen, Senior VP at Goldman, the woman who'd interviewed me for my dream job a lifetime ago. "I heard you had a family emergency," she continued, sitting down uninvited. "We were all devastated when you left. You were going to be our youngest analyst to make associate." "Things change," I said carefully, clearly. She gestured at my sundress, my tanned skin, the journal where I'd been sketching business ideas. "You look different, happy." We talked for 3 hours. She was in Bali scouting locations for a company retreat, frustrated by the lack of boutique properties that understood luxury without losing authenticity. "Everything's either a backpacker hostel or a soulless resort," she complained. "I need something that makes our executives feel transformed, not just pampered." That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words had awakened something. Not the old ambition that burned for recognition, but something quieter and infinitely more powerful, a vision. I started sketching, writing, planning. What if there was a space for people like us? The ones who'd lost themselves in service to others, who needed not just rest but resurrection? 2 weeks later, I sent Miranda a 40-page proposal. The concept was simple: boutique properties that specialized in silent transformation. No social media tags required, no influence metrics, just spaces for the forgotten to remember themselves. Her response came within hours. "This is brilliant. When can you start?" "I already have," I replied. She didn't just invest. She became my mentor, my champion, the first person in years who saw me as more than someone's sister or guardian. She taught me about venture capital over video calls, connected me with architects who understood vision beyond blueprints, introduced me to hospitality experts who'd built empires from intuition. "You know what I love about this?" she said during one late-night strategy session. "You're not trying to prove anything, you're just building something true." The first property opened 8 months later, a 6-room sanctuary hidden in the rice fields of Ubud. I named it Forgotten Grace, and every detail was deliberate. The library filled with books about second chances. The spa menu focused on releasing what no longer served. The restaurant served comfort food elevated to art. Mac and cheese made with truffle oil and aged Gouda, the kind of meal that hugged you from the inside. I didn't announce it anywhere. No Instagram launch, no press release, no influencer events. Just word of mouth from guests who understood what it meant to disappear in order to reappear. It was booked solid within a month. "How?" Miranda asked, staring at the numbers. "Turns out I'm not the only one who needed this," I said. The second property opened in Santorini, a converted monastery where monks once took vows of silence. The third in Positano, built into cliffs where you could scream into the sea and let the waves swallow your past. Each location was chosen for its power to transform. Each design honored what was while creating space for what could be. Each guest arrived carrying something heavy and left a little lighter. I reinvested everything. While other boutique hotels focused on social media moments, I focused on the moments between. The guest who cried at breakfast because it was the first time in years someone had cooked for them without expecting gratitude. The executive who extended their stay 3 times because they'd finally remembered how to sleep. The mother who came alone and left with the first chapter of her novel. My managers sent me reports, but I never used my real name in any corporate documents. I'd incorporated under our mother's maiden name, Delacroix, partly for legal protection, partly because Thompson belonged to a life I no longer lived. Meanwhile, 12 time zones away, Jake and Sarah were building their own empire. I knew because Miranda occasionally forwarded me things, not cruelly, just unaware of the connection. "Look at this train wreck," she'd said, sending me an article about influencers who'd over-leveraged their renovations. This couple in Indianapolis tried to flip a house into an Airbnb and ended up in foreclosure. The wife was apparently buying followers while their contractor liens piled up. I looked at the photo, Jake and Sarah standing in front of my childhood home, which now sported a gaudy, modern farmhouse facade that Mom would have hated. They were smiling, but I recognized the tension in Jake's jaw. The same expression he'd worn when I'd told him we might lose the house the first time. I could have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired and distant, like looking at strangers in a newspaper. 18 months after landing in Bali, Forbes Indonesia ran a feature on mysterious boutique properties changing the hospitality landscape. The journalist had tried to track down the owner, but hit only shell companies and polite deflections. The article went viral internationally. The Invisible Empire, How Forgotten Grace became the most exclusive hotel brand you've never heard of. They speculated I was old money hiding from scandal or new tech wealth avoiding attention. They interviewed guests who spoke in reverent tones about properties that had changed their lives, but wouldn't reveal locations unless you were personally referred. "It's not about exclusivity for exclusivity's sake," one guest explained. "It's about protecting something sacred. The owner understands that some transformations require witnesses, not an audience." I read the article from my new apartment in Tokyo, preparing for our 7th opening. Outside, snow fell on temple roofs, and I thought about another snowy day years ago when I'd taught Jake to make snow angels in the backyard of the house he was now losing. Time is strange when you're rebuilding. Days feel like years, years like minutes. You wake up one day and realize you've become someone you don't recognize, someone you actually like. Miranda called as I was reviewing architect plans for property number 8. Forbes wants to do a follow-up. They're offering stupid money for an exclusive with the owner. "No," I said without hesitation. "You could tell your story. It's inspiring." "It's mine," I corrected gently. "And some stories are more powerful untold." She laughed. "God, I love you. By the way, we're profitable across all properties. You're officially a very wealthy woman." Wealthy. Such a strange word. I'd been poor in so many ways that had nothing to do with money. Now I was rich in ways that couldn't be counted. "I need to book a flight," I told her. "It's time for property 9. "Where?" Morocco. Found a riad in Marrakech where a princess once hid from an arranged marriage. Perfect, she said, for women who need to hide to be found. Success is sweeter when they don't see it coming, but it's sweetest when you stop caring if they see it at all. The universe has a dark sense of humor, or maybe it just appreciates good dramatic timing. I was 35,000 feet above the Pacific, flying first class from Tokyo to Marrakech when I heard it, that laugh, shrill, entitled, unmistakable. Sarah's laugh, the one she deployed like a weapon when she wasn't getting her way. This is absolutely unacceptable. Her voice carried from the economy cabin with the kind of volume only truly oblivious people can achieve. We were confirmed for first-class upgrades. I have the email right here. I kept my eyes on my laptop, reviewing the final contracts for the Morocco property. The flight attendant who'd been serving me champagne, Yuki according to her name tag, walked past with the practiced calm of someone who dealt with difficult passengers daily. Don't they know who we are? Sarah's voice pitched higher. We're travel influencers. Jake and Sarah explore. We have over 100,000 followers. A pause. Then Jake's voice, lower but still audible. Sarah, please, let's just... No, we paid for these tickets with the promise of upgrades. We're reviewing one of the most exclusive hotels in Morocco. We deserve to be treated accordingly. My fingers stilled on the keyboard. Morocco. They were going to Morocco. I pulled up my email, scanning through the reservation requests Amina, my Morocco manager, had forwarded for approval. There, buried between a tech CEO seeking silence and a novelist finishing her memoir, was a request from a Jake and Sarah Explore. Lifestyle influencers seeking to showcase your beautiful property to our engaged audience. We can offer significant exposure in exchange for a complimentary stay. Amina had flagged it with a note. Should I reject? They don't meet our referral requirements, but they're very persistent. I'd been traveling when it came through, had glanced at it briefly, and told her to handle it as she saw fit. Apparently, she'd approved a standard booking, paid, not comped, and definitely not the penthouse suite Sarah had requested. Ma'am, please return to your seat. Yuki's voice was professionally firm. First class is fully booked by a private party. Then I need to speak with them. This is discrimination. We're business owners. I closed my laptop and stood. Time slowed as I walked down the aisle. 3 years of transformation, of building something from nothing, of learning who I was without the weight of who I'd been. All of it condensed into 30 feet of airplane carpet. Sarah saw me first. Her mouth was open, ready to launch into another tirade when recognition dawned. The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Jake was turned away, fumbling with their carry-on. Sarah, what's... Then he saw me, my baby brother, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd erased me. He looked older, tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from chasing someone else's dreams. His hair was longer, styled in a way I knew he hated, Sarah's influence, like everything else. But his eyes, God, his eyes were still the same. Still Dad's eyes. Still the eyes that used to look at me like I hung the moon, before Sarah convinced him I was blocking his son. Samantha. The word came out cracked, disbelieving. I didn't respond to the name. That girl, the one who answered to every need but her own, was gone. Is there a problem here? I asked Yuki in Japanese, a language I'd learned during long Kyoto nights when sleep wouldn't come. She responded in kind, grateful for the linguistic privacy. These passengers are upset about their seats. They claim they were promised upgrades. I see. I turned back to them, switching to English. I'm afraid first class is fully booked for this flight. The cabin was purchased for a corporate retreat. Sarah found her voice. You're on this flight? I am. But we're going to Morocco. To review a hotel, the Forgotten Grace property. How lovely, I said, the same tone I'd use for strangers, because that's what they were now. I hear it's beautiful this time of year. Jake hadn't stopped staring. His eyes tracked over my outfit, simple but expensive, the kind of understated luxury that whispered rather than shouted. The watch that cost more than the house renovations they'd lost. The ring I'd bought myself in Santorini, wearing it on the finger where other women wore promises from other people. You look, he swallowed, different. Time does that, I said. Sarah's survival instincts kicked in. She grabbed Jake's arm, nails digging in like talons. We should get back to our seats. The flight attendants are waiting. But Jake didn't move. Sam, I'm sorry, I interrupted, polite but distant. But you're blocking the aisle? Yuki took her cue. Sir, ma'am, I need you to return to your seats now. Wait. Jake's hand reached out, not quite touching me. Can we talk? Please, it's been 3 years? Has it? I asked, as if I hadn't counted every day at first, then slowly stopped counting at all. I hadn't noticed. Sarah tugged harder. Jake, come on. She clearly doesn't want. You never told me you were in Morocco, he said desperately. You never told me anything. You just disappeared. The irony of it, him accusing me of disappearing, was almost enough to break my composure. Almost. I received your message, I said evenly, about needing space. I honored that request. I didn't mean forever. Didn't you? I smiled, the kind of smile I'd learned in boardrooms and negotiations, the kind that gave nothing away. Well, forever is such a subjective term. For some people, it's 3 years. For others, it's the 10 years before that. Yuki stepped between us. Ma'am, should I call security? No, I said, switching back to Japanese. They're harmless, just lost. I turned to go, then paused, a moment of poetry too perfect to resist. Enjoy your stay at Forgotten Grace, I said over my shoulder. I hear the owner is very particular about the guest experience. Something about understanding what it means to be forgotten. Sarah's gasp was audible. You don't mean, you can't be. But I was already walking away, back to first class, back to the life I'd built from the ashes of the one they'd burned. Behind me, I heard Jake's voice, urgent now. The owner? Sam, wait. The curtain closed between us with a satisfying whisper. I settled back into my seat, picked up my champagne. Outside the window, clouds drifted by, like thoughts I no longer needed to think. Yuki appeared at my elbow. The passengers have returned to their seats. I apologize for the disturbance. No apology necessary, I said. Sometimes the past needs to be reminded of its place. She smiled and refilled my glass. The flight manifest shows they're staying at your property for 5 nights. Yes, I said, pulling up my laptop to send Amina a quick message. Treat them exactly like any other guests. No special attention, positive or negative. Just our standard service. Because that was the true revenge, not cruelty, but equality. They would stay in my hotel, be served by my staff, walk through spaces I'd created, and understand with every luxurious moment that I'd built an empire while they'd been playing house with my childhood home. The plane hummed on toward Morocco, toward another property, another transformation, another piece of the puzzle I was building. In economy, 2 people sat with the knowledge that the sister they'd dismissed as toxic had become someone they couldn't afford to ignore. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about the Riyadh renovation, about the women who would find themselves in its hidden courtyards, about the stories that would unfold in its silence. The past had had its moment. Now it was just turbulence, something to rise above. The best revenge is becoming someone they can't ignore, then ignoring them anyway. The Riyadh Lumière de l'Aube was my masterpiece. Hidden in Marrakech's ancient Medina, it had once sheltered a Berber princess who chose exile over an arranged marriage. Now it sheltered anyone brave enough to choose themselves. I watched from my office terrace as Jake and Sarah arrived, their taxi struggling through the narrow Al Medina streets. They looked small against the massive wooden doors, dwarfed by centuries of other people's stories. Amina greeted them with her usual grace, and I observed their faces change as they entered. Every guest had that moment, when they stepped from chaos into sudden peace, when they realized this wasn't just another Instagram-ready hotel. The courtyard fountain sang its ancient song. Jasmine perfumed the air. Rose petals floated in the reflection pool, each one placed by hand every morning, a meditation in beauty for beauty's sake. "Welcome to Forgotten Grace," Amina said in her musical English. "You are here to remember." I saw Sarah pull out her phone, then lower it slowly. We had no rules against photography, but something about the space itself demanded presence over posting. Even she could feel it. For 3 days, I watched them from afar, watched Jake sit for hours in the reading room, surrounded by books about second chances and finding yourself. Watched Sarah grow increasingly agitated as her phone calls went unanswered. Apparently, their remaining influencer partnerships were dissolving. "The Wi-Fi isn't working properly," she complained to Hassan at the desk on day 2. "I can't upload anything." "The Wi-Fi works perfectly," Hassan replied with practiced calm. "Perhaps it is not the connection that needs examining." I'd trained my staff well. On their 4th morning, I made my decision. Not from vengeance or even curiosity, but from something cleaner. The need to close a circle that had been left jagged and unfinished. I found them at breakfast on the roof terrace, the Atlas Mountains painted purple in the distance. Sarah was pushing food around her plate while Jake stared at nothing. That 1,000-yard stare I recognized from the months after our parents died. "May I?" I gestured to the empty chair at their table. Sarah's fork clattered to her plate. Jake's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "Please," he said quietly. "Sit." I poured myself tea from their pot, mint, fresh, the way Mom used to make it for upset stomachs and broken hearts. "How are you finding your stay?" I asked, as if we were strangers. Which, in every way that mattered, we were. Jake searched for words. "It's unlike anything we've experienced. That's intentional." I sipped my tea. "Every detail here serves a purpose. The fountain's sound frequency promotes calm. The room colors follow circadian rhythms. Even the food is designed to nourish more than hunger." "You built this," Sarah said. Not a question, an admission. "I built all of them, 7 properties so far. This is number 8. Jake's hands trembled slightly. The articles were right, about the owner creating spaces for transformation, for people who'd lost themselves. "Yes. Is that what happened to you?" You lost yourself? I considered the question, watching a hawk circle overhead. No, I lost who everyone else needed me to be. It's not the same thing. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Jake, we should— I've thought about you every day, he interrupted, words tumbling out. Every single day for 3 years, I hired a private investigator. I called your old jobs. I even filed a missing person report. I wasn't missing, I said gently. I was becoming. I was wrong. The words came out choked. About everything. About Sarah convincing me you were toxic. About pushing you away. About the house. God, Sam, we lost the house. I lost everything trying to be someone I'm not. And the only person who ever really knew me was the one I threw away. Sarah stood abruptly. I'm going to the room. Neither of us stopped her. When she was gone, Jake crumbled. She's leaving me. The business failed. The blog's dead, and she's already planning her exit. She lined up her next relationship 6 months ago. Some crypto guy with actual money. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Failed marriages were their own kind of grief. Are you? He looked at me with those dad eyes swimming now. After everything I did? Pain isn't a competition, Jake, and yours doesn't diminish mine. They just exist, together, apart, like us. He wiped his face with hands that shook. I dream about that last text you sent. Have a beautiful life. Like a curse and a blessing all at once. It was neither. It was goodbye. I wasn't ready to hear it. You weren't supposed to be. Goodbye isn't for the person leaving, it's for the person being left. We sat in silence, the morning prayers echoing across the Medina. Somewhere in the riad, a guest was playing piano, Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major, music for endings that felt like beginnings. The house, Jake said suddenly, someone bought it, paid off the foreclosure, settled the contractor liens, even covered the back taxes. The bank wouldn't say who. Was it? I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside, the deed to our childhood home, transferred fully into his name. No conditions, no strings attached. Mom and Dad would want you to have it, I said simply. I kept it safe until you were ready. His tears came freely now, the kind of crying men do when they finally break. Silent, shoulders shaking, years of pride dissolving. Why, he managed, after everything? Because love isn't a transaction, Jake. It's not a debt you pay back or a score you settle. Sometimes it's just a gift you leave on the table when you go. I stood, smoothing my dress. Your checkout is tomorrow. Amina will ensure you have everything you need. Sam, wait. That girl doesn't exist anymore. I said it gently, like explaining death to a child. But Samantha Delacroix wishes you well. She hopes you'll use the house to build something true this time. Something yours. I walked toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Jake, Mom's jewelry box is in the attic, hidden behind the insulation. I couldn't sell her wedding ring. It felt too much like selling her love. Maybe give it to someone who'll understand its weight. Sam, his voice broke completely. I mean, Miss Delacroix, will I ever see you again? I turned back one last time. My baby brother, 32 years old now, lost in a different way than before, but maybe, finally, ready to be found. You'll see what I've built, I said. In every beautiful space that helps someone remember who they are. In every person who chooses themselves. In every act of grace that expects nothing in return. You'll see me everywhere, Jake, just not here. The morning light blessed his tear-stained face as I left. In the courtyard below, the fountain continued its eternal song, Water into basin, basin into pool, pool into memory, memory into letting go. Amina met me at the door. The car is ready for the airport. Tokyo? Kyoto, I corrected. It's time to build number 9. And your brother? I looked back at the Riyadh, this space I'd created for people to find themselves in losing everything else. He's exactly where he needs to be, I said. We both are. As the car pulled away through the Medina's maze, I didn't look back. Some gifts are goodbye letters written in generosity. Some forgiveness is just freedom wearing a different dress. The future waited, unwritten and unencumbered. I had hotels to build, women to shelter, stories to hold space for. The past could keep the house. I had something better. I had myself. I gave him what he thought he wanted, a life without his sister's shadow. He never realized that shadow had been shelter until the sun started burning. 2 years passed like seasons I finally learned to notice. Cherry blossoms in Kyoto, monsoons in Ubud, snow silence in the Swiss property I opened for those who needed to scream into mountains that wouldn't judge. I was reviewing applications for our scholarship program, fully funded stays for women rebuilding after loss, when Amina forwarded the email. Subject: not asking for forgiveness. Ms. Delacroix, I'm writing this from Mom's kitchen. The one you saved? The one I almost destroyed twice. Sarah left 14 months ago. You probably knew she would. The crypto boyfriend lasted 3 weeks before she found someone with a yacht. I don't blame her anymore. We were both trying to be people we weren't, wearing lives that didn't fit. I've been living in the house alone, learning things you tried to teach me. How to cook Mom's pot roast, how to tend Dad's garden, how to be still in spaces that echo with absence. I found your hidden notes everywhere. Recipe cards with tips you'd added, garden markers showing what to plant when. Even a letter in the attic, dated the day you left, telling me you loved me enough to let me learn my own lessons. I'm getting married next month. Her name is Grace. I know the irony isn't lost on me. She's a social worker who specializes in sibling grief. We met at therapy, the real kind, not the kind where someone tells you what you want to hear. She knows everything about you, about what I did, about what you gave up and what I threw away. She says the saddest stories are the ones where love exists on both sides, but pride builds walls too high to climb. I'm not writing to ask you to come to the wedding. I'm writing to tell you I'm endowing a scholarship in your name at Northwestern for guardians who sacrifice their education to raise siblings. Grace helped me understand that sometimes the only way to honor a debt you can't repay is to pay it forward. The fund will cover full tuition, living expenses, and counseling. The first recipient is a 22-year-old woman raising her 3 younger brothers. She reminds me of someone I used to know. I dream about you sometimes, not the you I pushed away, but the you from before, singing off-key while making breakfast, checking for monsters, holding me through nightmares. I wake up and want to call you, then remember I burned that bridge with my own hands. Grace says grief isn't just for people who die. It's for relationships that end, for the selves we lose, for the futures we sacrifice. She says I'll grieve you for the rest of my life, and that's okay. That's the price of pride. Your properties are legendary now. Tech CEOs whisper about them like secret speakeasies. There's a 2-year waiting list. A Vanity Fair journalist spent 6 months trying to get an interview with the mysterious owner who builds sanctuaries for the lost. I wanted you to know. I see you everywhere, in every woman who chooses herself, in every sacrifice transformed into strength, in every act of grace that expects nothing in return. You told me goodbye wasn't for the person leaving. You were right, but sometimes it's also for the person who stayed behind, who finally understands what they lost. Have a beautiful life, Sam. You deserve every moment of it. Your brother, always, Jake P.S. I'm keeping Mom's ring. Not for Sarah, not for Grace, but as a reminder. Some things are too precious to give to people who can't understand their weight. I read the letter 3 times. Not because it changed anything. Closure isn't always about reconciliation. But because it was proof. Proof that people can grow. Proof that pain can teach. Proof that sometimes the greatest gift you give someone is their consequences. Grace found me the next morning as I stood at the window of our Kyoto property, watching pilgrims climb the temple steps in the rain. Not Jake's Grace, mine. The 12-year-old girl I'd hired as a translator in Bali, who'd become my daughter in every way that mattered. Orphaned by the tsunami, raised by aunts who saw burden where I saw brilliance. She was at Harvard now, studying international business, but came home to wherever I was every break. You're crying, she observed, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Happy tears, I assured her. Sometimes stories end exactly as they should. She read the email over my shoulder, wise beyond her years. Will you respond? No, I said softly. He doesn't need my words anymore. He has his own. But the scholarship, that's beautiful. You changed him. No, darling, his pain changed him. I just got out of the way. We stood together, watching the world wake up. In 6 countries, women were checking into our properties, ready to shed skins that no longer fit. In boardrooms, Miranda was negotiating our expansion into South America. In the house I'd saved, my brother was learning to tend gardens I'd never see bloom. Tell me again, Grace said, our morning ritual, about choosing yourself. I smiled, turning to face this unexpected daughter, this gift the universe had sent when I'd finally stopped looking for family and blood alone. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, I recited, the words I'd written on every property's cornerstone. It's the first step in having something real to give. You can't pour from an empty cup, but more than that, you can't pour from a cup that was never yours to begin with. And the price? Everything, I said, and nothing. You lose who you were supposed to be. You find who you are. Worth it? I looked around the tea room I'd designed, at the daughter I'd chosen, at the empire I'd built from the ashes of obligation. Thought of the thousands of women who'd found themselves in spaces I'd created from my own loss. Thought of Jake, finally learning to tend his own garden. Every single day, I said. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I pulled out the locket I'd carried, but never opened. The one piece of Mom's jewelry I'd kept after all. The family photo was still there. 4 faces on a beach, frozen in time before everything shattered. But now I saw it differently, not as a monument to loss, but as proof of love. We'd been happy once. That happiness had been real. It just wasn't meant to last forever. Nothing is. I added a new photo to the other side, Grace and me at the Santorini property, laughing as the sunset painted us gold. My new family, my chosen family. The family built not from obligation, but from recognition, soul seeing soul and saying, yes you, let's build something beautiful. The locket clicked shut with the softest sound, like a door closing, like a book ending, like goodbye finally meaning what it was supposed to mean, peace. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun broke through clouds like hope after grief, like grace after grudges, like love that finally learned to let go. Somewhere in Indianapolis, my brother was planting seeds in soil I'd taught him to save. Somewhere in the world, Sarah was probably staging another life for photos that would never capture what mattered. Somewhere in this moment, a woman was walking into one of my hotels, ready to stop being who everyone else needed her to be. And here in Kyoto, in a tea room built for endings that felt like beginnings, I was exactly where I belonged. Not because I'd won, not because they'd lost, but because I'd learned the only revenge worth taking, living so well that the pain becomes footnotes in a story about joy. Grace handed me tea, jasmine for new beginnings. We drank in comfortable silence, two orphans who'd found home in each other, in purpose, in the beautiful audacity of choosing ourselves. The future stretched ahead, unwritten and unlimited. I had hotels to build, women to shelter, a daughter to watch bloom. The past could keep its apologies. I had something better. I had grace, the real kind. The kind you give yourself when you finally understand that the only person you need to save is you. And that's not revenge, that's revolution. Grace isn't forgiving those who wronged you. It's forgiving yourself for believing you needed their validation to matter. The most refined revenge, it's building a life so beautiful that bitterness can't find a place to grow,